What's up, everybody? This is Ricardo Rodriguez.
And Matthew Messick.
And this is
the Profits Over Wages podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Profits Over Wages podcast, where we do weekly interviews with highly successful business owners and entrepreneurs. We discuss life, business, and entrepreneurship to bring forward the lessons learned from success and failure, and most importantly, have fun while doing it. On episode 45 of the podcast, we sit down with real estate rockstar Alisa Levin. Alisa is a real estate attorney and broker. She founded Levin Law Ltd in 2007, specializing in commercial litigation, landlord and tenant disputes, and real estate transactions. She is a multi-million-dollar producing real estate broker at Exit Realty's #1 office in the country, placing in the top 10 in sales volume in 2017 and top 5 in 2018 year-to-date. Alisa is also vice president at Luminex Construction Co and has extensive experience in construction management. Lastly, Alisa is the founder of Agency RE, a real estate consulting firm, and a former Adjunct Law Professor at DePaul University. Now onto what you'll get out of this episode. We talked about how Alisa has been able to effectively run both a law practice and a real estate business simultaneously, how she's been able to grow her real estate business so rapidly in just 2 years, and the one thing that new brokers don't do when first starting out. Enjoy the show.
I was like hovering at 8 and 9, and then July hit and I fell because I had 4 deals terminate because of construction and sales issues. So it gives other people an opportunity to jump in line.
Yeah, because I was looking at all the rankings, and you were pretty up there for like a while.
Yeah. No, I mean it's a result of a lot of hard work and a lot of money I spend. You know?
How do you balance being able to like do both law and being a real estate agent at the same time? Because a lot of people can't only do one.
Well, I think that at the end of the day, it's just a function of organization. You know, I answer the phone, and whoever's on the other end is who needs my attention at that time. And then I keep a running tally of what I have to do in my law practice, because that is deadline based. So whether I have a court appearance and I have to, this appointment, I handle the appointment and then I go whatever's next in the day. So by way of example, today I had a showing at 8:30. I had a client meeting at 9:30, and I had to be in court at 11, and then a meeting here with you guys. So
when's your next meeting?
Who's calling me? Once the phone's on off now, so I'm not going to know until we're done. But no, I mean, it's a matter of scheduling, right? And you set up your day and your week and your month with whatever needs to get accomplished. So real estate is real time and right now, but litigation is backed in from the deadline backwards. So if I have a brief or something that I have to research and write, and it's due, say, on the 27th of the month, then I'm going to allocate time from, say, the 23rd to the 27th to make sure it's done.
Yeah.
And I just take things off the checkoff list in relation to when they're due.
How do you stay organized? Like, do you have certain software tools you use, or just calendar? Or?
I'm very old school. I use a paper calendar for everything, and I write in my showings. I write in all my court appearances. I'm very visual, so if I can't see it, it's not happening. So when you look at my desk, you can see all the files are out there, all of the files that I have in the office, everything I can see. So I don't use any drawers, and nothing is really hidden. So in terms of the calendar, it's usually out. And that way, if something comes up and, I need to schedule a client for on the real estate side and they want showings, I'll time block so that I can make sure that I've got time in the day to accommodate them. And that way, if things come in later in the day, I've got time to make sure I service them. But no, I mean, a big part of it is, I think what I've heard throughout the years, I've been practicing law almost 16 years, is people are surprised I answer my own phone. And that is I think that translates well into real estate, is that answering the phone and being present is a huge function of client service.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You got to be available. I mean, they're calling you for reasons, or else they would have just texted you.
Right.
But then again, there's those people who just want to call you for everything.
Well, I think in law and in real estate, there's a lot of tire kickers, and that maybe is true for a lot of businesses. And, Yelp and online reviews and different things of how people find you really go into, it's a very quickly moving evolution, right? If you're not there immediately, they're going to move on to the next. And that next person and the next opportunity is crazy easy to find.
Yeah.
So you have to try to be immediately available. So I just try to do that. And, if that means I have to be unavailable for a call because I'm in the middle of something, but I can use my hand really quickly and shoot them a text or an email, then I'll do that because it's just trying to do the immediate engagement. But I think in both professions, it's just a matter of delivering what you say you're going to deliver.
Right. And you've been practicing law for 16 years.
Yeah.
How long have you been a realtor?
Just under 2.
Oh, so you're relatively new on the...
Right. And I mean, I handled real estate transactions for all that time. What actually put me over the edge is that I did the legal on a commercial real estate deal where the brokers made $160,000. And I just thought, that's it. I'm in the wrong chair.
Damn.
And right. And I realized, I mean, although that particular transaction was very labor intensive on the paperwork side, I thought to myself, there's a better use of my time and my soul. And I think, you know, if you examine the practice of law, it's one of the only industries that has a dedicated section in a bookstore of how not to do it. If you go to Barnes & Noble, you will see books on how to escape the practice of law. And so it's one of the most stressful professions that people can get into. And it is rife with a lot of issues because if you have a problem with a client or a matter, you can lose your license over it. And people who work at grocery stores and brick masons and doctors, you know, if someone dies on a doctor's table, they don't tend to stop being doctors, right? I mean, the malpractice risk and the issues that lawyers face in terms of liability is something that greatly increases the stress. And then when you focus on why you're there and what the subject of the practice of law is, which is effectively solving problems, what you end up with is a person who takes on every client's problem. So my job is to hold everybody's problems.
It's a lot of responsibility.
It's a lot of responsibility. It's a lot of stress. And so at the end of the day, you start to say, well, where's the gratification? Where's the fun part? So it's fun to win and it's fun to get your client across the finish line in a real estate deal. But when you examine the number of hours you spend versus what you make in a typical real estate transaction, at least in the Chicago area, the balance is not unequal. So that was another reason why I said to myself, you know, I love real estate. Why not have some fun with it? So showing people homes and getting them to where they want to go and getting to see amazing properties in the metro area, all while doing something that's natural to me, was a really easy transition.
And you don't have to take the class either.
No.
You just...
I had to take the test, right. The test, so by virtue of my legal education, attorneys are exempted from the educational background. So you still have to take the exam and demonstrate competency.
But the exam is like written like in almost law language. Like it's like for like at least for me, it was I had to read a question like twice because I'm like, wait, because it's like it's worded in
trying to trick you.
Well, right, and even on the bar exam, 2 answers are always right. So your the objective of the game is to get to the one that is more correct.
Right, the process of elimination.
Exactly. Right. So by deductive reasoning, I think most lawyers, you know, get a heavy education in how to deal with that. But I will say, I walked out of the real estate exam and I wasn't entirely convinced I passed. So it is. And, you know, if someone's looking at me, you know, I can't add 3 numbers if someone's looking at me. So at the end of the day, you know, the mathematics side of it, you know, requires some skill and some analysis. But
let's turn it back a little bit. What did you grow up in Chicago?
No, I grew up in Southern California until I was 9. And then my father, who was a forensic psychiatrist, moved us from California to Michigan. So we were there for a couple of years. And then he got an opportunity to be the director of the State Department of Mental Health in Arizona. So we moved from Michigan to Arizona, and I was in about the 6th grade at that time. So when most people ask me where I'm from, it's easier to say Arizona because I grew up.
That's what you remember. I mean, you don't really remember anything when you were like 3.
Well, I remember living in California, and you know, but it was the formative years, and you know, junior high and high school and college were spent in Arizona. So I guess by and large, I'm a Sun Devil, Arizona State through.
How'd you end up in Chicago?
So I went to law school in New Orleans, and when I was getting ready to graduate, this was before Hurricane Katrina, I quickly learned that in New Orleans, Louisiana, if your father's not somebody and you're not a Southern debutante, that it's pretty hard to get ahead. It's a very, very small town, and it's a lot like the Windy City in terms of corruption and politics and things like that. So at the time that I was looking for a post-law school job, I found that who you knew and who you were really had a lot to do with it in such a small place as New Orleans. And so I began to look elsewhere. And part of that analysis when you're a graduate law is that there are other degrees that you can continue to get. So I ended up looking at a Master of Law in the real estate sector, which had me look between Chicago and Miami. So after a game of rock, paper, scissors, true story, Chicago won.
So you could very easily be in Miami right now.
I could very easily
Super
be in
tanned,
Miami.
driving a convertible.
Yeah.
If you don't drive a convertible already.
I don't drive a convertible. I have an SUV. But Miami actually won the toss. But what happened was this exchange took place at a bar, and when Miami won the toss, somehow I got very nauseous.
Oh.
And so that was my gut telling me that that was not the right thing to do, even though I had never been to either Chicago or Miami. I had no way of knowing. But Miami won the rock, paper, scissors competition, and so I decided to do the opposite of what the game told me to do. So I booked a plane ticket to Chicago, and the rest is history.
What job did you take up here when you first moved here? I
was a law clerk to a very small law firm in Lincoln Park, across from the Webster Theater on Webster and Clybourne.
I love that theater.
Yeah, it was great. It was awesome. So for $12 an hour, I practiced law. And it was a very rude awakening into the professional services industry, because I think that an experience like that, when you're going into court and you make less money as an attorney than you did before you went to law school, yet you're with the client and you're actually doing it, you realize that the benefit of the caliber of the degree and the competency of the attorney are not concepts that are mutually exclusive. So that is to say that, like, I would be going up against Harvard-trained attorneys in the same cases, representing, people in the same manner. And I was making $24,000 a year, and they would be making much, much more than that. And it gave me a quick education into kind of the politics of law firms and what happens to people in really large cities when you think you're going to make a lot of money in your profession, and then maybe you don't. So it forces you to analyze, how can I work to get ahead to deal with this.
Oh, really quick. What made you decide to be a lawyer in the first place? Like, to go to law school, like where'd that motivation come from, or that decision?
Well, I can tell you, most of my childhood, people said I was pretty good at arguing. So I think probably from a young age, I demonstrated some capacity to talk back and, march to the beat of my own drum. But I think, basically what happened is I got into the construction industry at 18, and I was managing a warehouse, and that gave me, I was doing accounts payable, accounts receivable, I was managing equipment. I was starting to get familiar with high-level executives that were storing large commercial equipment in our warehouse. So it just started to give me access to kind of C-level executives that were dealing with my bosses. And at the kind of money I was making, and at the point in time of my life where I was, I thought to myself, well, what am I going to do? So I started to consider, what am I good at? People were encouraging me to consider law. So I started to think of myself as wanting to become a construction lawyer. And at the time, it wasn't really that encouraged, probably for a million reasons, because law is a male-dominated industry, and, I was young, and I didn't necessarily have any experience in the industry at that time. Mm-hmm. So the seed was planted at that point, but what ended up happening is this was Arizona in the 90s, so the construction boom was starting. So I left that job and started working for a luxury home builder and architect. So they were a design build firm. And that is what got me first into residential luxury home construction. And I was the office manager, but that in a small firm had me dealing with the clients, site selection, product selection, dealing with the subcontractors, dealing with construction documents. And so it gave me a foundation for what is now my love of the industry, because I was dealing with people building custom luxury homes in Scottsdale, Arizona. And from there, different jobs that I held in the construction industry had me straddling commercial, residential, and industrial construction. So between 18 and 22, I hopped around different companies, but I saw all of these different facets of the industry. So by that point, when I was 22 years old, I again was faced at the crossroads. Well, am I going to stay a secretary level in someone else's company, or am I going to find a career that can boost me to where, I think I'm better going to be situated in my life? So that was the point where I said, well, I'll go to law school and I'll be a construction attorney.
That's awesome that you got some really good perspective and foundation at a really young age in the real estate industry, which, laid groundwork for, your future.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it was accidental that I ended up working for all these different types of companies. But at the end of the day, as I sit here now, 25 years later, I can say, this is how an industrial contractor would approach this. This is how a commercial contractor, this is how the owner approaches it. So when I look at it from either a legal perspective or in a brokerage sense, I've got the angles because I've analyzed the problems and solutions kind of all my career because of all of the things that I've dealt with.
Okay. So then, let's go back to go forward. So so then you went to law school and then, you moved to Chicago, became a law clerk. You weren't getting paid very much. And then from that point, what was the next step after that? So
I took a position. I left the small firm in Lincoln Park and I took a position downtown at a general practice law firm. And so, most law firms are kind of like doctors in that they have a specialty or a grouping of practice areas that make sense for them. So I took a job with like a 30-person firm. I was the only female and I was in the litigation department and the hubs of the firm's practice was real estate. So that kept me from my first job as an attorney in doing both transactional real estate as well as litigation. So I would handle closings, I would handle litigation, and whatever the client needed, I would be called upon to do. Probably in that particular job, my focus was more on litigation, but because I had transactional experience, it would make sense, from a cost perspective for me to handle those things. So I was there for a few years, and then I ended up coming out on my own in 2007 and practiced law out of my kitchen until I ended up downtown and started just getting clients and putting my name out there and trying to build a practice.
That was right at the cusp of the crash.
It was.
How did that go?
Did you get more clients from that or less?
Miraculously, I looked back on this, I think, during the time and also much later, and I realized that I did really well in that time. What I can tell you is that I actually advertised on Craigslist. And so Craigslist was the way that I advertised legal services.
Really?
And it was quite fruitful for me. And basically, I just tried to stay busy. And so when the phone wasn't ringing, I would advertise more. And when when things were very busy and hectic, I would advertise less. And throughout the years, I've tried every trick of advertising for legal services, but the main mantra has always been just do a good job.
You get referrals.
Yeah. Because, primarily because of my kind of, I think, attitude and reputation, and people know that in terms of litigation that I don't take no for an answer, and I'm known as, I would say, a quality advocate for my clients because I just try to do a good job, but I don't take gruff from other lawyers and judges, and that's easier or harder depending on the day. But even just what happened today, I was in court and the judge was going to rule against me and I kept pushing it and I got him to change his mind. So that's the whole essence of being an advocate. And I think that serves me well in law and brokerage because my job is to be there for my client and get what I need to get. And if I don't leave that office or that courthouse with what I need, then I haven't worked hard enough.
Or get them what they want to get.
Right.
Right. Because you're looking out for them.
Right.
Have you always focused on your practice on all aspects of real estate law, or did you do more closings in the beginning? Or
to be honest, I've really split it much of my career. I have always taken as many closings, and buy or sale transactions as have come in the door. Mm-hmm. So to the degree that if I had so many that I needed help, that I would hire help. Most lawyers, as far as I understand and can remember, still only have 2 hands and mostly 8 hours in the day. But the thing is that when you're a solo practitioner, you have to do whatever it takes to get the job done because you don't always have immediate delegation capability. There isn't always someone sitting there who gets the job done for you. So sometimes I was busier than others. But the nature of real estate transactions is dates change, things fall through, inspections cause people to terminate. It's such a fluid thing that based upon just the nature of the industry, I have never had too much trouble in keeping everything scheduled and kind of sanity maintained. What I can say is where things were really stressful or difficult is if I had a very large trial. In case going to trial, that would monopolize a lot more time, and then I'd have to shuffle. But now, day to day, it's a lot of shuffling, but, if you figure out, I think experience tells you how long things take.
Because you don't have do you have employees or paralegals or assistants or anything?
Not now. I had some employees last year, And I just felt that I was spending more time managing than I was spending getting business and doing what I needed to do to keep things going. And I was having to correct their work and redo a lot of things. And that was just a time suck that ended up costing me money. Yeah. So, and the other thing is that I love real estate brokerage so much that when I have free time, that's what I want to be doing. I want to be showing properties and getting deals done and making connections.
So you started that 2 years ago, and then, I mean, you're a top 10 agent at the #1 exit office out of 600 in the entire country. So, I mean, that's pretty remarkable, and especially like just off the bat, like rookie of the year type stuff. So, like, how did that go where you're like, okay, I'm going to go and do this, but then you had like immediate success? Like, well, how was that transition?
Well, the transition was really easy, but part of it is that I don't consider real estate transactions to be difficult things. And so I think that a lot of new agents, and, you know, if you're looking on Facebook and you see a lot of new agents, not only do they not know how to get clients, but they don't know how to service the clients, and they don't actually understand the aspects of the transaction.
That, and you're also coming from, you already started your own business, a client-based business. Right. It is law, but it's still sort of the same principles, right?
Right. Well, I mean, the difference when you're an attorney handling a real estate transaction, the only thing that you didn't do was drive the client around all over town.
Right, but you're still doing client acquisitions.
Correct. So I not only see it that way, but I don't have a problem in spending money to make money. So I approached it from the beginning as a business that was going to cost me money in terms of advertising, in terms of buying signs, things like that. So by way of example, there are agents at the exit office and probably across all brokerages that when they do an open house, they have to borrow signs. Well, I don't have that problem because I went out and bought signs because I knew that I would need signs. Yeah. And why would I want a sign that doesn't have my name on it? Why would I want a sign that doesn't have my phone number on it? So I would never borrow another agent's sign unless there was an emergency.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of weird.
Right. So there's nothing wrong with borrowing a sign, and I would never begrudge those agents for doing it. But what it tells me is that they're not looking at it as a business that they're ready to grow on their own. So on day one of my affiliation with Exit or my decision to become a broker, I was already prepared to put down the credit card and do what I needed to do to get the ball moving. So my entire existence is about keeping the balls moving and all the saucers spinning in the air. And that's something that my law practice has enabled me a comfort level with, because I have to manage everything that's in the door. And I have to ensure that by just doing good work, that I'll have more people that are going to call.
Well, I think what it is that, you know, someone's like, oh, I want to be a real estate agent. And they go out and get their license. And then they just like, oh, I'm going to show people around and sell houses and make money. And then like, you know, whatever the numbers are, like 80% of agents are out of the business in like, you know, 6 to 18 months. But they don't look at it as like an actual business. And if they hadn't had a business before, they don't know what to expect. And they're just like, wow, this took a lot more effort than I thought. And then they just quit and go do whatever else they were doing. But like, you know, if you already had a bit, you know, any business you kind of get into, I kind of say it's like 80% like knowing how to run a business, and then 20% whatever industry knowledge like that particular business is in. So if you've already had a successful like law practice in the same industry, it's just you apply a lot of the business strategies and concepts that you already had for the last 10 years to a new business. And then it was a lot easier transition for you than somebody just starting out that doesn't know that, that looks at things as expenses as opposed to like investing in your business that's going to bring back money, you know,
opportunity cost.
They don't set aside like a marketing budget. They don't think that they're going to need that, but that's like, you know, there's so much like ROI for every dollar that you put into marketing.
Right. And the truth of the matter is that I don't even spend that much time thinking about it, because if I really analyzed every dollar that I was spending on advertising, I would probably be a lot more stressed out. And I was having this conversation recently with my lending partner, you know, because they want to see an immediate return. And I said, you know, buddy, you got to remember, this is a longer pipeline. People buying houses aren't going to make decisions in 2 to 3 weeks. So if we get say like a Zillow lead, yeah, I want to try to convert that lead. But what that really means is starting a relationship. Real estate's a relationship business. I don't sell houses. I sell relationships. I sell trust. So me being an attorney, and especially a real estate lawyer, certainly helps, because I'm in a position to say, well, listen, if you don't know a little bit about me, I have this background, I have this career, and that experience in doing hundreds upon hundreds of closings can help you manage your expectations. As a broker, I'm going to be able to see what you don't know as a first-time buyer and to volunteer to you that information and that guidance before you even realize you need it. So certainly it helps, but I think a part of it is that, you have to manage the transaction and you still have to be competent.
Right.
But part of getting that client or servicing that client is presenting yourself in the best way you can. And sometimes that costs money. Obviously, there's little things like how you dress, pulling up in a nicer car and presenting a professional appearance. So on days I went to court, I might look nicer than otherwise I would on 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning doing a showing. But at the end of the day, it's about presentation. And then if you're competent and you deliver and you answer the phone when the client calls, and then you're able to find them a property, those things certainly help. And I think many, many brokers across the nation are highly competent in their profession. But the ones who stand out are the ones who are able to manage and negotiate all of those moving parts.
Did you see there's a lot of crossover from, clients you had from your law practice that now they know that you are a broker and you're getting a lot of, say, free marketing or free clients because you already have an existing business and they came to you or referred people to you for your brokerage?
To be honest, that's actually a market that I haven't tapped that hard. And a lot of that is a function of my own time management. What I do is I add a lot of people to my newsletter that goes out through Exit's software, but I haven't hit that reservoir all that deeply because I've been so busy with the traction that I've been gaining through my advertising efforts kind of elsewhere. So that's something that's going to be an ongoing goal for me. And ultimately something that's going to, when I decide to form a team, which is something I have interest in, that'll be something that I'm examining is how can I go through, 3,000, 4,000 contacts that I have across these businesses and really leverage that. So that's where I've got room for improvement is to really work and dedicate the time that I have, to do that. But 2 businesses, single mom, trying to get everything done, that's where you get back to the number of hands and the number of hours in the day. So it's just a matter of me making my priorities for 2018 and beyond so that I can continue to get better. But to your point, I don't hound my clients because my main goal in my life is to just be good at what I do. And so through social media and through making connections and, opportunities such as this, I just want to establish myself as somebody who's competent and trustworthy and can get the job done. So
then if you started, being a broker from scratch, that business, like what advice would you give to other brokers just starting out in terms of like how to advertise and market to get clients? Well, I think a lot of it is you have to trade in the currency that people are looking at. So right now it's a lot of Instagram and Facebook, and Twitter. And so if you can get comfortable with social media, if you can get comfortable with email marketing and, if you're working with a brokerage that provides you with that software, then take advantage of it. And we're lucky with Exit that we've got, a reminder from our staff ahead of time that says, hey, your monthly newsletter's out. Go in, log into the system, look at what articles are available so that, the content that's being delivered. And then you have an opportunity to customize that message. So that's one thing that I think that people can do is realize how many resources are either free or for a very low cost for social media content that you can do. So, posting online or scheduling posting, you can dedicate 2 minutes a day to getting social media outreach. And then I think the other thing is you just have fun. So when I go on a showing, like I saw a showing this morning that had pink carpet in the bathroom. You can bet that will be on my Instagram later tonight because that is interesting. So that's the thing is the house is pretty old.
Pink carpet in the bathroom.
It's in your neck of the woods.
There's some older apartments in Marina Towers that have pink metal kitchen cabinets.
Was it Logan Square?
No, it was in Old Irving. Yeah. So but that's the thing is that I think what you do is you show what you're doing, right? So when you're a new agent and you don't have any clients, but you have friends, hopefully. So you show your friends what you're doing.
That's literally what we do.
Right.
Yes.
We're posting the pictures of the projects that we're doing.
I think that's so key. And it seems to me that people who aren't social media savvy are just merely blocked because they think it's more complicated.
It's not.
Right. You take a picture.
Documenting.
Well, you show a little bit of who you are. So we're all following each other on Instagram and Facebook. You're going to see some vacation pictures. You're going to see a few things that show you who I am as a person, but you're going to see some things that show the public who I am as a broker, as a lawyer. and you just put yourself out there. And that takes 30 to 60 seconds a day. So when I have a closing or something I'd like to celebrate, I'm going to put that out there. I don't need to be worried about who sees it. Who cares?
Yeah. Oh, I got some really good advice recently. It was like, as a broker, when you get a client, share the pictures of the house, like when you get the contract, and then when you do the open house, and then when you do the closing, there's like 3, 4, or 5 instances, and you're sharing so much. People think, like, if you have one listing, they'll think you have 5 listings because you keep sharing the same thing.
Right.
But you're sharing it in different ways. And that's kind of what happened with us. With each one of our projects, we do updated, through the investment. And they're like, how many projects do you? And it was funny because then I saw someone else do that. And I thought they only had a couple of projects, and they started sharing a lot of pictures. I'm like, how many projects do that guy have? Like,
he's like 2.
Yeah.
Just a picture of the front of the house in the back.
But then it gives other people the sense of like, wow, they're really into the industry and passionate about it. And they're doing a lot. Like, and then that's how you get clients.
Well, here's my philosophy. I think that, this is something that bartenders get a real quick education on. You got to put the first dollar in the tip jar, right? So if a person walks into a bar and they see the tip jar is empty, they're not going to think that the bartender is any good. Right. But if they walk into the bar and they see that there's $1 there or $10, they're going to think, just by nature of, humankind, that the bartender is pretty good. They're never going to know that the first paper dollar in the tip jar came from the person who had pride in their work. So that's what I try to do. I try to be and get and do the first dollar in the tip jar philosophy. And I try to do that every day. So it's just showing value. So if I'm showing a just listed or a just sold or an under contract, I'm just trying to say for myself and my sphere that I'm doing something, and that's my way of putting the dollar in the tip jar. And I think it works. And, that's what, if people didn't think that social media had any impact, then the worst case scenario is we're all just really sharing and we're, nothing else is really coming of it. But if we look at it as a small time expenditure and the possibility that there's going to be a reward downstream, people will continue to do it because they think there's a dividend.
Right. And it's really not that hard to do it.
No. But I do think that, you have to take time and you have to feel comfortable. And yes, sometimes I have to think of what hashtag do I put on Instagram. But the truth is I just try to have fun with it because I think it's a really interesting way to communicate. And as it's turning out, I get new followers every day from all over the world who somehow, for some strange reason, think what I'm doing is interesting. And then I get to look back at what they're doing, and I will follow it or not follow it based on whether I think it's interesting.
Where are most of your clients coming from now?
Most of my clients are in, the metropolitan Chicago area.
Like marketing sources.
I work heavily with Zillow, and then I have a lot of referrals. So, from past clients. And one thing that I try to do is every 6 months, I try to reach out to past clients and just shoot an email. It's nothing more. I don't think I have to buy them. I think that if I delivered good service and I reach out as somebody who's still interested in their lives, that reaps a better and more sincere reward than because I send them a cookie with a pre-printed address label that I ordered off the internet. I think that works for some people, but that's not my style.
Yeah.
And I think that it works because I just got a call yesterday from a client that we closed December 2017. So somehow I was able to make a good impression and stayed at the top of her mind as a real estate person. So that reinforces my belief that if I can just stay in sincere contact with them and I see the deal as forming a relationship with the side effect that there was an actual transaction that took place, then I think for me, I'm just reshaping what's actually happening. I look at it as making friends.
You said you do a monthly newsletter?
I do.
And it goes out to all your, just your whole email contact list or your previous clients or both?
It goes, to everybody who's kind of been uploaded into that system. It's just, the email marketing, the number of people that are in there.
What does that newsletter consist of?
It's populated by articles that are drafted by the marketing professionals that are provided to us through the Exit brokerage. So It's an Exit brokerage proprietary software, and they're like national articles and then some that are more locally driven. So you can add your own. I've written many articles and I love to write. So, used to have a blog, and oftentimes I'll write an article that stems from something I want to talk about, but I've got content there that I can pick from. So when we go in to access the newsletter, I pick the articles specifically that I think are interesting and relevant to a message that I might want to give. And then sometimes I use, whatever's provided.
Yeah.
And if I've got time, I'll write something.
I think, did you say you taught at DePaul?
I did.
How did that come about?
So, I taught at the law school and at the business school as an adjunct professor. And so what happened was, in one of my real estate closings on the law side many years ago, my opposing counsel was someone who became a friend of mine, and she is a professor at DePaul Law School. And so as we became very friendly, I said, I'd love to teach a class with you. And so she was instrumental in making that happen. So I taught a class in the law school for real estate drafting. So part of their real estate curriculum. And then that led me to teaching her class with her in the law and the business school, every semester for a number of years thereafter. So I loved it, and I spent a long time trying to become a law professor. My failure in that area is actually what ended up putting me more toward brokerage, is because
what happened?
Well, I loved it so much, but I think that what a lot of people don't understand is how difficult it is to become a professor in the legal field. It's very elitist. Where you went to school and where you didn't go to school is a big part of the equation. And since my degrees aren't, lined with gold or platinum, it was very difficult. It's a highly, highly competitive industry. And I spent 7 years trying to do it. And I published scholarly articles, and I taught, and I did everything I could.
And nothing.
I got opportunity, but ultimately the stars didn't align. And so, and that was a function of wanting to stop litigating. I was a trial lawyer and have been a trial lawyer for all of these years, and I wanted to make a change, something that I think was happier, a little less soul crushing, and, something that I really would bring me more joy. So because I love teaching so much, I tried and tried. And when that didn't work out, I finally reached a point after publishing my second scholarly article, related to real estate. I just thought, you know what, I'm working really hard and it's not happening. So I'm going to switch gears. And that was the door that opened up to allow brokerage to seep in. So I think it ultimately worked out the right way, but yeah, I mean, I had other dreams. You could say you've taught at DePaul now. Yeah, well, and I did, and I loved it. And, I think public speaking is something that comes easy to me, and they say it's the number one fear in America. So I think if I've mastered that,
it's also one of the highest paid careers.
Hey man, I'm up for it. I'll give a speech any day. I think the thing is I wing it. So for me, it has to be the right opportunity and the thing for me to talk about, but it's fun. And that's, I think, the name of the game. You hit your 40s and you start to realize, where you want your life to go. And a big part of that is having a professional endeavor that gives you joy.
Right.
It's not about saying, I want to run away from stress. That's a part of it. But you want something that puts a smile on your face. And that's why the practice of law wasn't doing that enough. So when I'm out driving clients and we see the weirdest things when we go to all these properties, and it's so much fun to run into something, even this morning looking at pink carpet, and we're bonding and we're laughing and we're taking pictures and we're like, we're going to make this change. But then that leads to the design aspect and all of the things that can give you excitement in real estate is how can I take this property and turn it into something magnificent?
What's the top? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, that's, I think, what makes it really fun and a very, very creative process is and you guys do this all the time. You're looking at a house and you're saying, well, I want to move this wall and the kitchen's here for this property, but I think it would work better over here. And you can flex those creative muscles to really change something. And then when you see the beginning product and the end product, it makes you a master.
Rewarding.
Right. It makes you a magician.
Yeah.
It's a lot of magic in between point A and point Z, but you made magic.
Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of what I can do when I can tell a client, listen, you can do this, you can do that. What about this tile? Do this with this, kitchen. And they didn't think of it. I'm able to help open their eyes of what the possibilities exist with real estate. They
don't necessarily have to spend a ton of money on a brand new house. They could you essentially creating inventory for them.
Absolutely. And it's just fun. Yeah. And so that's the reason why I do it. And I tell clients one of my kind of ready-made phrases is, this is the fun job. It really is. And so that's why I keep doing it, is I enjoy it.
It's also, some of the upgrades are typically not as expensive as they think they are.
Right.
Like backsplash or tile. That's very inexpensive, and it makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. And when you people who become homeowners, they realize, how much time they're going to spend at Home Depot, and you kind of get a quick education on what things cost and how things take shape in a home. But when you're helping somebody achieve that, it's just really rewarding.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to be said for knowing how to do those things. And you guys, with all the projects that you guys are doing, you see those transformations.
Yeah.
Have you done any investments?
I have a property that I used to live in that now I rent out. But I don't have any straight investment properties, but that's the goal. Absolutely. Yeah. Part of my take over the world plan.
What are your other goals for the future with, your law practice, being a broker, and then what's kind of next for you over the next couple of years?
I'd like to form a team in terms of the brokerage side and really kind of expand that horizon and get the machine to be bigger and larger and better oiled. I really like new construction. So, I see a number of brokerages in the city that are, honing in a lot on new construction, and I like that. And I think that ties very well into my background. So I would be interested to work with developers and, have a portfolio of projects that I'm helping to create, because I really like the design aspect. As far as my law practice, really what I want to do is get out of litigation and just focus on the transactions. So I want to pick up a lot more closings and transactions, and get away from going to court. Because I think I've been there. I've gone to the Supreme Court. I've argued, and I've been in a position to really hit what I think is an apex in my career for what I do. But because there's something that I found that I like more, that brings me more joy, it doesn't make sense to try to continue to do litigation if it's not where my passion is. Yeah. So I'll still do it because there are many aspects of it that are amazing and creative, but I think my attention is going to be put more toward focusing on brokerage and growing me as a brand.
How do you juggle, being a single mom and having essentially two businesses? Because that's, I think just having one job and being a single parent can be kind of tough.
Sure.
So having two businesses on top of that, doing that, what are some things that have helped you with that, just for maybe people are out there that want to start a business, but they just don't know how to manage, everything that's going on?
To be honest with you, I think that the key principle that I find is just being honest with the client. So for example, if my ex-husband isn't available to watch our son, who's 6, he comes with me to the showings. And I find that goes much more smoothly if I prep the client in advance. So if I say, I always want to do the showing when it's convenient for the client. Right. But if I know that I'm on mom duty at that time, then I will say, sure, I can do the showing for you Sunday morning at 9 a.m., but my little boy's going to be with me. Is that okay? And if I sense any hesitation, then I can try to play it off on my time and try to get coverage. But sometimes he comes with me, and he's my little helper, and he's very well behaved, and the focus there is still always on the client. So I try to bring my son when he's not hungry and he's not tired and he's got some distraction so that I can still do my job. But I'm a mom first, right? So I can't leave my child unattended.
Right.
So if he's got to come with me to work, then that's what has to happen. And he's come to court before if that's had to happen. And I think most realtors and professionals across the country are very, very receptive to that. But I think a key component of it is just being upfront and honest. And because I'm like that in my life and, personal and professionally, I'm just very straightforward. It's natural for me to say those things. But on the other hand, a lot of it is balance. If it's dinner time and a client calls, I'm going to tell them, listen, I'm in the middle of dinner. I'm feeding my boy and I got to get him into the bathtub. So can I call you back at 9:30? Surprisingly, most people are really open to that.
They can relate most of the time, or at least be a little empathetic about it.
Absolutely. And on the legal side of things, there has been so many times where my clients, in seeing me as something other than an attorney, they see me with my child, or they can see me if I've invited them to a barbecue or something, and they see a wholly different side of me. Yeah. It actually really helps.
Makes you human.
Right. instead of, just the cyborg that I have to be in a courtroom, right?
Not only that, but like when you're a broker, they just think of you as a salesperson, or
Right.
you're trying to take advantage of them, or just trying to get that commission. They get to see a little more personal side of you.
Absolutely. And I think that's an unfortunate part of, brokerage, is that people really feel that brokers don't do anything. And I think that there are plenty that probably don't. And, in dealing with opposing brokers, there are countless people who don't answer the phone and don't respond. So, if I have to escalate or go around them, I've got something I need to accomplish, or a showing I need to get into, or whatever it is to make the transaction come to fruition. I'm going to stop at nothing to try to accomplish that. But yeah, what's it all about? The balance and, doing what you need to do to get the job done. So I see a stack of cards. What is it?
Oh, these are questions.
Playing poker right now.
Oh, I love it.
No, just kidding. It's a question. We're at the 45-minute mark, so we're just doing a bunch of random questions.
Okay.
And just answer them as things come to your
Tell the
head.
truth.
Yeah.
The whole
It generates good conversation.
I got it.
What is unique about your business?
It's authentic.
Which one?
All of it. All of it. All my business. It's authentic. I really love what I do. And so while making money at it is, icing on the cake, I'm there to help people. And I think that's equally true with both sides of my professional lives. I like being right, and that's fun. And I think most people like that. But if you're right as a client and I can help you get where you need to go, and we go to court and we can rock the day, then I'm going to definitely derive some satisfaction out of that. But I also work really hard to make sure that happens. So,
have you ever turned down a client, and if so, why?
Yes. Personality mesh is really important. And when someone calls me, I think this happens more on the legal side, but when someone calls me and their expectations, it becomes clear that they can't be managed in a way that I need to manage them. I will decline the representation and, explain that it's really not a good fit.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I've had, I get a lot of calls from people who are involved in real estate wholesaling. And that's really common, especially in the, Chicago and a lot of metropolitan areas. But as a real estate lawyer, I have certain and very strong opinions about some of those things. And so if I find that someone wants to do something that I don't agree with, whether it's personal or professional or otherwise, I'm not going to take that client. Money is never an appropriate substitute for ethics. And so I think if somebody wants me to do something that I don't agree with, or if I think the client's wrong, then I'm not the right person, because I have to believe in the goal in order to get you to the destination. But that said, on the legal side as well, I've had personality conflicts that have arisen. That's a big part of it, is that, when money becomes involved and is something that we have to talk about, that can breed, mistrust. And I don't want to mistrust my client in compensating me for my time any more than my client wants me to not deliver the services that I'm obligated to deliver. So it's a relationship of mutual respect. So when it's evident to me from the first or second contact that there's going to be a problem there, or if I just don't like you, which is rare, it does happen, but if I just don't like the person with whom I'm dealing, because I don't work in a corporate environment and I can be the master of my destiny, if it's not a good fit, then there's plenty of other lawyers that are going to be very
It's a great thing about owning your own business. You decide who you work with and who you don't work with.
Right. And on the real estate side, unfortunately, it's very, very fickle. I had some clients, a lovely older couple that I worked with for 9 months. We had a couple of failed transactions as the result of seller issues. And I thought, as of the last failed transaction, that they were just taking a break. And when I circled back around 2 weeks later to check in, they were under contract with a different broker. Wow. And I was really hurt by that. But I was honest, and I just said, I feel really saddened that you wouldn't have come to me to let me know before I checked in that you felt that going with another broker was an option that you wanted to take. I said, that must mean I failed you, and I'm really sorry. But I said, I would have hoped that you would have wanted to continue a relationship. But the bottom line is that it had nothing to do with me.
No.
Brokerage and real estate being so fickle, all they wanted was the new house that they ultimately found. So I wasn't going to dwell on it, but it stings a little bit when
Oh, yeah.
people
I mean,
move
if you
on.
spend 9 months working with them.
Absolutely. And so, that's, I think, one of the, going back to one of your questions earlier is, what advice can you give a new broker? Well, you don't count your money until you've got the check clears.
Yeah.
You can't. And on the flip side, you can't worry about your marketing costs until you understand on an annual basis that, your ratios are out of whack. You have to be prepared to go the distance. And that is not a monthly analysis. That's really got to be, every 6 months or every 12, because the real estate pipeline is so long, and you guys deal with that all the time in construction and development and flipping. You're not making your money on day one.
Patience.
Right. True. You have to see the long game. And so I was privileged to speak at an event that Exit had some time ago. And somebody, one of the things I talked about was, what are your secrets? And I think that was one of them. You have to spend money to make money, but you got to be in it to see the long game. And that is what will take away the minutia of the everyday stresses and see, where's the long-term goal.
Like the long term for us for this podcast is not just to do the podcast.
Right.
It's to eventually do a book and then do speaking and then get paid to literally just talk.
And then I can bootstrap your opportunity by saying I was on the podcast and now I want a book.
You know what I mean? It's like you got to be able to look at it, look at a business 15, 20 years from now.
Absolutely.
And you might have to put in a lot more work now, but if you stay with that end in mind that it is going somewhere, you're able to put up with a lot of the bullshit.
Well, right. And I mean, and that's even, I have a similar outlook on child rearing. I mean, if you do the right work when somebody's little and you're shaping them, you're not going to have to work as hard when they're 18 because they're going to be a fully formed human being that isn't a jerk.
Right.
And that's your goal. So how do you balance it? You gotta put out the fire that's right in front of you. Yeah. Right. With a keen understanding that there are more fires on the way.
I think that's the longest answer we've ever had to a question in this round. No.
Sorry, not my fault.
That was funny. If you got the chance to start over, what would you do differently?
So many. Start over my whole life, my career, like really reset.
Either real estate or the law practice.
Oh man, well that's easy. I would have become a realtor at age 18 and never looked back. Absolutely. No, I mean, that's the thing. If the answer enables me to say, well, knowing what I know now, then I would have been able to really, really build something from kind of the inception of my career. But on the flip side, the entire career I've had as a trial lawyer is what has gotten me here. And it's what enables me to come into this industry making the change that I have with some knowledge and some credibility and certainly a comfort level. So it just depends. I think anybody, even a plumber could say if he started being a plumber at 18, by the time he was going to be 43, he'd be pretty competent too. So it's just a function of, where you're starting from.
So if you started over, would you be just a broker or would you have just been a broker earlier and then also still done law?
If I was really starting my professional life over, I probably would never have become an attorney. But I think a big part of that is the debt that you incur. Right, I had to take $200,000 in student loans, which are still faithfully being paid on and will be for a very long time. So, part of why lawyers like to make a lot of money and they like it and they want to, but they also need to because like doctors and many other professions, they have a very heavy debt load in many cases.
It's not just $500 for the class.
Right.
And then your MLS fees, which is,
yeah, a couple $1,000 a year, all that. But right. That's the thing. I was just, I met when I was on vacation, just recently in the Caribbean, there was a vet school there and I became friendly with someone who's in vet school. And she was telling me that when they graduate, their debt load's $350,000. So let's examine it. When you graduate with that type of debt load, you probably need to make a decent
you have to.
There's a certain threshold that you need to meet just to pay the debt service. And law is no different. And medicine is no different. And probably architects in many, many careers.
Oh, yeah. And architecture. I looked into it when I was younger. And even to get an entry-level job, you have to have a master's.
Absolutely.
Which is crazy. You're already like $200,000 in debt. I mean, you get an entry-level job.
Right. So that's the issue is that by the time you have a certain level of education and you've paid for those opportunities to get those degrees, at some point you have to just go out and make money. So if I had it to do all over again, I would have probably analyzed the benefit of getting the education if at the end of the day I was going to end up in a career that didn't require it. So coming full circle, I ended up where I am as the result of those choices. But had I had forethought or, talked to some people in the industry, maybe I would have done it differently. But that only suggests to me that we can do a better job with people in high school. And,
oh yeah,
when you're 18 years old, you don't know what questions to ask. Nobody researched, or very few people research a career. So that would be my mistake.
A little more guidance before you get yourself in $200,000 worth of debt would be very helpful.
Well, right. And the advice I had, from my loving mother was just, that's too much. And it was like, well, what's your idea?
Right.
Fine. But that's also the thing, is that people don't really encourage you not to go to law school. So if you're going to be encouraged by your parents to do something and then they're sanctioning it and saying, this is a great idea. Every parent wants their kid to be a lawyer or a doctor. But there's a freight that has to be carried in order to reach that goal. So unless you're going to get scholarships and do all those other things, you got to take the loans.
What is one thing that you find to be true that most people would disagree with?
Everything.
People are lazy. That most people start off from a point of laziness and do work as a result of need rather than desire.
What habits helped make you successful?
Organization, and trying to observe the 24-hour rule, is that every phone call needs to be returned within 24 hours no matter what. And I think the same goes for email.
That's good. I'm going to start trying to do that.
It's tough. And especially, you've got to weed a lot out, junk mail and things like that. But I think anything beyond that, you lose the opportunity.
Yeah, I just got a call from somebody who's been trying to reach you for 48 hours, by the way.
Yeah, you're already behind the eight ball.
No, I got back to him. He goes, I reached out to your partner because I started to get worried because I haven't heard from you.
He's like, I haven't heard from Matt in 48 hours. Is he okay? I'm like,
I thought I died or something.
Yeah.
Right. Well, so then that suggests you had a reputation for being responsive and then something happened.
He just dropped off.
Yeah.
And then the guy's like, is he alive?
I'm like, sorry, we're buying 2 houses tomorrow. I'm busy trying to get them closed.
Well, and that's the world we live in now, is that everything is not only instant gratification. You cannot get away from it. So I have friends who, much to my shock and dismay, don't actually carry their cell phones with them everywhere they go, including the bathroom.
That's weird.
Right. Everyone's got their cell phone.
You kind of expect people to reply right away too, because your phone is always at a hand, arm's length.
But that, and I don't know if you guys remember the days, before cell phones, but there was actual life before technology. So some of those people, right? I know, it's shocking. But some people are still never graduated from that point, in our evolution, and they do not feel the need to keep their cell phones close by or keep their ringer on.
My dad turns it off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And turns it back on when he needs it.
Yeah. No, and it's.
I'm like, what's the point of having a cell phone? Just get a landline.
Right.
Do you have a morning routine?
Well, yes. It's pretty much the same. It's, wake up, get coffee, get Junior lunch and off to wherever he needs to go, and then get to the office. So nothing much out of the ordinary, but it's more or less the same every day.
What was the worst piece of advice that you ever got?
That's a hard one. I would say the worst kind of category of advice is you can't do it. You won't make it because you're a woman in a male industry. And I got a lot of that through the years in law and in the construction industry. Maybe not so much in being a real estate broker, because I think that's probably more female dominated. But in the past, I even had family members who not only would tell me that I shouldn't want to be a construction attorney, but that it was a flat out mistake. And I really rebelled against that, because I think that my love of the industry is what has made me competent, and given me staying power, is that I find it interesting, and the people that are in the construction and real estate industry are interesting to me. And so I never listened to that I didn't have a place.
What did the people that told you that, what do they do for a living?
Well, oddly enough, one of the family members that told me that for a brief while used to sell commercial real estate. But she sort of comes from the cloth of any competency that she has is superior to competencies that other people could or might have. So because of her own structure and personality, she felt that she knew more than I did. And that was at the point where I was already a practicing attorney in the real estate field. And so I just said, well, you do you and I'll do me, and we'll see where, it all lands. But I think that the thing is, and this is not just family member to family member or woman to woman, but when somebody loves something, they should be built up, because I think the most positive thing you can do for somebody is encourage them to stay the course. And
positive reinforcement.
Right. And it's much better to tell people, what you're doing is awesome, and I see that you're working at it, and I know you're going to be good. And it doesn't take much to praise somebody, but it's really much more disastrous if you tell them they can't do it. Mm-hmm. I think many, many people who are very successful have had naysayers along the way.
Oh, yeah.
And, what can you do about it but just persevere? And it reminds me of when I was taking the bar exam, I was also doing my master's and working. Wow. And the dean of, the director of the department of John Marshall Law School, she made a comment to me that I shouldn't schedule the bar exam while I was doing her program because she thought it was too rigorous. And I was like, well, you forgot the job I have. I said, but, your job is to encourage me to make it happen, not tell me I can't do it. So I said I would, before you take your next meeting, I said, why don't you think about that? And I got up and I left, because I don't need anybody to tell me no. What's the benefit for them? It doesn't hurt them. I would rather be encouraged than anybody to tell me I can't do it.
Also, some people like to see, their friends and family do well or be successful, but not be more successful than them. So if they know that you have an opportunity to do something where you could leapfrog them, right, they're going to discourage you, because they're like, what if they are successful in that and then they get better than me, and then they don't want you to do that. Right.
And that just came up for me yesterday. I have a client who's a renter, and she's quite scared about the process. And she had some people apparently in her ear saying, you shouldn't rent. Don't take that type of obligation. You're not ready. It's too big of a deal, too big of a commitment. And she sent me a text and she said, Alisa, can I talk to you? And I said, yeah, let's set up a time to sit down. I said, but what I need you to know is that you gotta listen to your heart. Owning real estate doesn't need to be scary if the people in the pipeline are there to prepare you for what you can expect. Nobody should be afraid of undertaking the American dream because someone who's their peer isn't ready for that step themselves. Her friend or her colleague or whoever was in her ear, they said people like to keep you down because that's where they are. So it goes to your point. And
I mean, if they were probably a homeowner and they're like, yeah, it's a lot of maintenance, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of money. But if they're renters too, then like how you have no perspective on giving that advice because you don't own yourself. Like, what the fuck?
Exactly. But that's what I said. I said, listen, you're going to have a lot of people in your ear. I said, what I'm advocating is you get information and you simply talk to a mortgage broker to understand your options. Let the mortgage broker tell you no. He says, it's not my job to tell you no. I said, I'm the yes girl. You want to go see a house? When do you want to go? That's my answer. I'm not, even if I don't think you're ready to buy, let's go see it. We'll have some fun. And again, that ties into my perspective on real estate and servicing my clients. I would love to put a deal together, but if I treated every client like I was dependent upon them for my next meal, I'm pretty sure they would feel it.
Right.
I can't look at it that way. I need to go and have some fun with the client, develop a relationship and a bond, and hopefully the byproduct of that will be a transaction that makes them happy and I can put some money in my pocket.
Do you have a favorite failure? Is there one that sets you up for future success?
Yes. I was fired from a job while I was practicing law. We lost a big case, and kind of the way that it turned out was that, the client wanted somebody's head on the chopping block, and so my head was chosen for that. And it was a job that I was unhappy in anyway, and so it didn't turn out to be a bad thing. But while I was looking for work, I cleaned houses, and I decided, in my newfound entrepreneurial spirit at that point, I said, well, I'll clean houses. I'll have this as a business and I'll do it. And while I was on my hands and knees with some Murphy's Oil soap cleaning this very rude man's condo, I found a way somehow accidentally to tell him I was an attorney. And I realized that I was failing myself in that moment because I had to choose whether I was a lawyer or whether I was going to be a house cleaner. And I finished off the job and he gave me my check, and I went into my car and I realized that I was the definition of self-humiliation because I just told this person whom I'm cleaning their house that I was failing at something else that I should have been doing or wanted to do or wasn't ready, at that point to give up. And it was that moment in that conversation with that individual that made me decide that I really had to put 1,000% towards the practice of law to build a business, or I needed to hang it up and never do it again. Because I could never allow myself to be on my hands and knees again with a sponge in my hand while I'm cleaning for somebody in their home to try to ingratiate myself into their life that I could possibly be a lawyer for them. It was just a silly exercise that it was entirely accidental on my part, but it came out and it was just my pride talking.
Is that when you decided to start your own firm?
Yes,
Nice.
That day. Absolutely. So the failure wasn't me getting fired. I think most successful people have had hiccups in their professional career. And
Everyone has.
And I wasn't happy in that job. So for them to cut the cord before I could do it, that's no problem. The failure was my pride needed to be in my pocket so that I could just do a quality job of cleaning rather. You see what I'm saying? I mean, my job was to do something else.
Yeah.
But my pride wouldn't allow me to fully commit to that. And I let it escape. As somehow, only looking back, armchair quarterbacking it later to say, Alisa, you did the wrong thing because you didn't focus on what you were there to do. You tried to make that opportunity about something else. That was the failure because I didn't just take the lump and use it for what I needed it to do, which was just an interim paycheck. But as it turned out, it sprung me toward, the next chapter. So it ended up being a good thing and the lesson, but it was something I still think about to this day.
So why do you do what you do? What gets you through those tough times?
Well, I try to see the long game. I think that there's a lot of jobs that I could be good at and, maybe my skill set would be appropriate to, but, at a certain point you have to say, well, this is this section or series of cards that I've been given and I want to do the best that I can to take advantage of those. So I'm in the real estate industry. I have every intention of staying there. And, why I do is because I want to be better and bigger and shinier and faster. And the best way to do that is to show up for work every day, service my clients, and do what I need to do to make sure that I'm successful in that way. And if I can continue to just try to do my best, then success shouldn't be too far behind.
Awesome. Where can people find you for both real estate and law?
So my main phone number is 312-720-0082. I'm a broker with Exit Realty in Chicago. And the name of my law firm is Levin Law Ltd, which is Levin, Levin, Law, Ltd.com.
Awesome. Thank you. Really appreciate you giving us your time.
Thanks, guys. Had a good time.
All right,
Thanks so
till
much.
next time. And that's it for another episode of the podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. One last thing before you head off though. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us your thoughts on iTunes. It would really mean a lot and help us reach more people. You can also find us on Facebook at Profits Over Wages Podcast, as well as on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time.